Hey, how y'all doing tonight, or today, or this morning, or whenever you're watching this video? I hope you all are doing great. I hope you're having a great school year, and that you're getting all excited about the end of the school year, and as we come to the end here, and especially as we get ready to start youth again. That's going to be exciting to finally be able to get together with one another. So looking forward to that. Um, so hopefully you've been having an opportunity to watch the videos that we've been posting every week and have been learning some good stuff. I know it'll be better and easier to learn when we're face to face, but hopefully you're getting something out of the videos and learning something good. So I have a question for you. Have you ever had a family member or a friend or someone close to you all that you really like, but you just rarely get to see them? I had a cousin growing up that I absolutely loved hanging out with. But she lived in Virginia and I lived in Ohio, and so we never got to see each other. It was a real bummer. So how do you keep in touch with them? Her and I used to send. Imagine this: we used to actually send postcards to one another back in the day, um, and letters every once in a while. So how do you keep in touch? I mean, we have WhatsApp and Snapchat and Instagram and all these different tools that we can use to try to keep in touch. Do you use those? Is that how you do it? What what happens when you don't? What happens when you don't keep in touch? What happens to those relationships? They sort of fall apart, don't they? They just sort of wither away on the vine, as you could say. There's and that happened with me and my cousin. Eventually we started getting a little older, getting a little busy, and just stopped really sending any postcards or letters or anything. And I only saw her every once in a while, and that was a bummer because I really liked her. Um, so we've been talking about this in relation to God and our relationship with God and how that works in ways that we can develop habits that would strengthen our relationship with God and help us to reach others. And so, we've looked at how to connect with God in week one. We looked at listening to God in week two. We looked at talking to God last week. So those things really allow us to have a closer relationship with God in our personal lives. But it won't take our relationship with God to the level that it needs to be until we do the one thing that God asked us to do, and that is to talk with others about God. He wanted us to, that was his great commission to us at the very end, is, to go and spread the gospel to others. Now, that's, we're going to talk about that today, and I don't want us to freak out over that and think, yeah, well, we're supposed to be preachers. That's definitely not what I'm saying. And God didn't say that either. But God did say that we needed to talk to others about Him and to share the good news. That's what we needed to share. So, just out of curiosity, does that make you nervous? Does that make you a little uncomfortable? Does it freak you out a little bit? That's why I said, we don't, don't panic. We don't all need to be preachers or anything. But does it make you nervous? I know it makes me a little bit nervous when I think about it. What am I supposed to say? What if I sound like an idiot? What if they ask me a question I don't even know how to answer? I mean, that happens. What if in today's day and age, what if I say something and offend them and make them mad? That's easy to do nowadays. Um, so these are all things I can worry about when it comes to that. But have you ever heard of a self-fulfilling prophecy? A self-fulfilling prophecy is a prophecy that comes true largely because you think it will, and you actually, without knowing it, cause the prophecy to come true just from the actions that you take. And I think this behavior, or the idea that we need to talk about God, oftentimes has a self-fulfilling prophecy that it makes us nervous because we're afraid we're going to do something wrong. And because of our nervousness, we end up doing something wrong. And then we look back and say, see, I told you, that's just how it happened. What if we prepared to succeed instead of preparing to fail? What if we prepared to actually have a good scenario happen rather than worry about all the things that might go wrong? So if I'm afraid I don't know all the answers, what if I learned a few of the answers ahead of time before I went and spoke to them? So have you ever heard of Peter? Not Peter, someone at school that you might know, or you've got a uncle named Peter, your dad's named Peter. I'm talking about Jesus's close friend and student, one of the disciples, the Apostle Peter. Peter, if you've ever read any of the books in the Bible, which I hope you have, but if not, we're gonna actually open one of the books that Peter wrote. He wrote a couple letters back in the day, and he wrote one called First Peter, and we're going to talk about that one. But so here's someone who's a close friend of Jesus's. How do you think he felt about talking about Jesus early on? Now, during the time that Jesus walked the earth, he had his apostles talking about him at that time. And then, of course, when he rose back to heaven, his commission to them was to go out and spread the good news, and that's what they did. So there were two different times when Peter was actually doing this, talking about Jesus. Now, obviously, early on, Peter didn't know him very well at all. I don't know if you've been watching The Chosen. It's a really good series about the life of Jesus, and it gives us some good insight into the way these apostles might have been when they were working with Jesus early on. He was a very impulsive man. We know that from the Bible, not just from The Chosen. We know that from the Bible. But The Chosen gives us a good opportunity to see how impulsive he might have been. It's obvious he was impulsive. There were times when he misspoke about Jesus to Jesus's face. Jesus called him Satan one time. That's a pretty harsh thing to say. But what he was saying, what Jesus was saying to Peter was, you're not listening to who I am. You don't know who I am. And Peter didn't know who he was. That he had a completely misunderstanding of who Jesus was at the beginning, because he just didn't know him very well. And then after Jesus was crucified, gosh, what do you think it would have been like to talk about Jesus at that point? I mean, they killed Jesus for this this kind of talk about this new kingdom that Jesus was talking about. And so what do you think the Roman Empire thought about the followers of Jesus, and what do you think they wanted to do to them? I think the followers of Jesus thought they wanted to kill him. They also destroyed the Jewish temple around 70 AD. And so I'm not sure when this letter was written, but certainly early on, that would have been a fear of theirs, that the Roman Empire hated the Christians so much that eventually they would go in and destroy the Jewish temple. That wasn't due to the Christians, but that was just their hatred of the Jews and their control of the world and their view of it. But Peter had a plan. Peter thought about this and knew what he should do in order to be able to do what Jesus asked him to do. In 1 Peter 3:15, he starts off by saying, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give a reason for the hope that you have." So Peter said, I just need to be prepared. Now, again, this is the impulsive Peter, the Peter that cut someone's ears off, cut one of the soldiers' ears off. That was, or actually, it was a servant of one of the soldiers' ears off when they came to get Jesus in the garden right before they killed him. And then, somewhat later, here he is saying, we need to be prepared to give an answer. That way, when anybody asks us, what is the reason for our hope, we're ready for it. We're ready to tell them. what our reason is. Now, what does he mean when he says this? When he says to be prepared to give an answer? Does he mean that we need to be an expert? Because that's I'm definitely not an expert. I don't know that much about Jesus to be an expert. Does it mean that I need to be a preacher? I'm not a preacher. I work full time at the community college. I'm not a preacher, and I've never felt called to be a preacher. But this particular verse doesn't say, for those who are called to be a preacher, you should be prepared to give an answer. It says, always be prepared to give an answer. And so I don't think he means that you need to be an expert or a preacher. I think he means you need to be prepared. That is, you need to have thought about, why do you have this hope? Why? And let's be clear, when Peter talks about hope, Jesus talked about hope. We're not talking about the hope that we talk about. Like, I hope I get some ice cream tonight. I hope that's true. But I mean, am I going to get it? Probably not. It's probably not going to happen. I just hope it will, just because I would love to have that happen. That kind of hope is a wishful thinking kind of hope. But when Jesus and Peter are referring to hope in the early, in that time when they referred to hope, what they meant was something that was actually assured. Jesus talks about the hope that you have. He means, I've given you a promise, and your hope is in that promise, that we know that's going to come to fruition. And so we have our hope in that. So we're to be prepared for that. And that preparation is that we need to be prepared to share our story, why you are a Christian and how you came to be one, and what your understanding of that is. I mean, it comes down to, do you know how to talk about the things you love? I mean, you could talk about your favorite foods, your music, your favorite animals and cars, that movie you just saw last week that was awesome, the video you just saw on TikTok. I mean, you're telling everybody about all these things. You know how to do it. It's the same thing when it comes to talking about your faith and why you believe what you believe. It's peppering the things that you say with the words of God and the fact that you are who you are. It's part of your DNA. It's the way God made you. Talking about your favorite food and your favorite movies and all that stuff. This is definitely the kind of thing that Peter was referring to. It's not all of it, but definitely some of it. He talks about the reason. We don't want to lose fact that there's the reason, and that would come from more understanding about who we are and why we were talking about that. And I'll get that in just a second. But he also adds, no, not just to be prepared for this, but we need to do it with gentleness and respect. Why? Well, we don't want to become a stumbling block to the people that we're speaking to. We don't want to be the stumbling block. I don't want to be a jerk when I'm talking to somebody and then they reject Jesus because I was a jerk. I want them to want to know more about Jesus because of me. And if they don't, they're choosing not to because of Jesus and who he is and their rejection of him, not of me. And he says that in the next verse, to keep a clear conscience so that those who speak maliciously against your behavior actually would be ashamed of their behavior, because they have no reason to actually be slandering you, because you were doing it with gentleness and respect. Everybody deserves gentleness and respect. It doesn't matter who they are, what their upbringing is. They all deserve gentleness and respect. So here's a plan. First thing that you can do is to speak up in youth group. This is a safe place to talk. This is where we can talk about our faith and the reasons that we believe what we believe, because we're within a group of people who also believe the way we believe, or in large part do. And so this is an opportunity where we can talk about our faith and our beliefs in a safe environment. We also should think about our story. What is your story? How did you come to believe in the gift that Christ has offered us, that he is truly the Son of God, that God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are the Trinity, and they are the creators of the world, and they are the ones that offer us an opportunity to be able to live in heaven forever. What is your story when it comes to that? So then consider this. Consider sort of a template. I was once lost. I was once fill in the blank. But God sent someone to me. God brought me to my knees. Fill in the blank. And now I believe fill in the blank. It's a simple template. It's something that's pretty easy to remember, but it's a great starting point. It's a great just a great way to make sure that you have something at the very beginning. You're going to be here your whole life? I hope not, because there should be more. You should have a great understanding. There's going to be questions that are going to come up. People are going to say, but why this? Why that? How come this? How come that? And you're going to be like, I don't know. And I don't want you to be afraid of that. I want you to be open to the fact that someone might ask you a question. As an add-on to this template kind of thing would be, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. But I'm confident that the answer is out there and that we can find out what the answer is. And so let's look it up. Let's learn about it. Let's see if we can figure out the answer. You don't necessarily have to say that to them, but you can say, I don't know. I'll have to look it up. And leave it at that. And that'll give you an opportunity to be able to get back with that friend later on and say, I looked that thing up the other day and found out this, and this. And so I just thought I would share that with you. It's just another opportunity to be able to drop that pebble into their shoe, so to speak, as Greg Koukl would say. So think about that. As we get ready to get back into youth as a group, as we'll be sharing time together in fellowship and study, be prepared to speak up. Be prepared to give a little risk of uncomfortableness, of embarrassment, to speak up. And I would also add, be prepared to be gracious to those who are taking a risk to speak up, who are risking being uncomfortable, who are risking being embarrassed. That you not treat them with disrespect, but that you treat them with gentleness and respect, so that all of us would be willing to speak up and talk about our story. We can begin in our youth group and then take that to our community as we go back to school, as we go meet with our friends, and be able to share that message with others. I hope you all have a great day. I love you all, and I pray for you daily. You all take care. See you in a couple weeks.